Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another live edition of Seahawks Forever. I am Dan at Seahawks Forever. Just thought we would just do this once in a while through the offseason. You know, the next 8 weeks outside of mandatory minicamp next month. It's been referred to as list season. Certainly going to have a list for you tonight. But, you know, scintillating topics, timely topics, newsworthy topics certainly become a little bit more difficult to come by. And so it lends itself to a little bit more creativity, which is something that I'm going to lean into this offseason. I've done the thing when both writing for Seahawks and NFL websites. I've done, you know, the historical evergreen type pieces where you look back and you rank players historically and do all-time teams. And we'll do some of that. But if you start to do that every single offseason, it becomes redundant, right? How different can it be from one year to the next? And so I'm going to try to get as creative as I can. And what I've seen so far is that you guys are into it, that I haven't exactly pushed the edge of the envelope too hard yet. But so far, the views and the engagement and the support this offseason has been bigger and brighter and greater than anything I've experienced so far since this channel started, or ever since I started podcasting in the beginning. Part of that is really good guests, and that's something that I will lean into as well during the off season, trying to get the experts in here and the big brains and get their thoughts on things. Which I want to start off by saying, if you haven't caught up on the last couple of shows, please do. Tons of really incredible feedback for the interview I had last night with Garret Greenlee of the Football Analysis YouTube channel. He's a young guy, started doing this 5 years ago. His channel's blown up. He's pushing 200,000 subscribers now. He was unbelievable last night as a guy who has a national perspective, not a Seahawk fan, but had some strong thoughts on the Seahawks. So check that out. I've got that linked down below, as well as a conversation I had earlier this week with Griffin Sturgeon. Of course, you all know who he is from the Seahawks Overload podcast. And we focused specifically in that episode on the defensive side of the ball, which is kind of his passion and his area of expertise. Both those conversations I'm really proud of. And as I said, the response from you has been pretty great. So both of those links are down below, as are all the ways that you can help support me as an independent content creator and this channel, either with direct donations. Those links and methods are all listed down below as well, or the best way, the easiest way, and it's freaking free. Just subscribe, hit that like button, and hit the bell for notification of future episodes. I don't talk about this enough either. One of the best, most inexpensive ways that you can support the channel that benefits you is by getting YouTube Premium. And if you find yourself watching more and more YouTube content like I do, in fact, in this day and age, I will say this: outside of binge watching shows, which my fiance and I love to do, sometimes there just aren't shows that we're interested in, or we're not in the right mood for shows. I don't watch cable TV anymore. I don't watch network channels, even on a streaming service. I don't watch cable channels. You know, back in the day, I would watch cooking shows and HGTV and things like that for hours. I watch YouTube. Anything you could ever want to watch, you can find on YouTube. Really well-produced stuff. Short form, long form, documentaries, sports, entertainment, information. I've gone down a rabbit hole the last couple of weeks watching those videos where the guys that mow lawns and do landscaping for a living will do free projects where they clean up really overgrown houses. It's crazy. I'll sit and watch those for hours at a time. If you find yourself doing that for $13.99 a month, it is absolutely a no-brainer to sign up for YouTube Premium. And the benefit for you of that is no ads. And so while you're going to see ads during this program, you're going to see ads during pre-recorded episodes that I do. It's the only way I can support myself. You can get rid of those and watch things ad-free. It's probably the best $13.99 I've ever spent, and I do get a small percentage of that. I mean, it actually does tangibly help support me as well. So just thought I'd throw that out there. What do we have to look forward to tonight? Well, as I stated in the thumbnail and in the promotions earlier today, this is just kind of a free-for-all, wide-open Q&A. We'll probably do these at least once a month, if not every other week, where if there's anything that's been on your mind, any unanswered questions you have, things that you're curious about, that maybe just none of the creators that you watch have really touched on, you can ask me about them. You can bring me your takes and opinions. We can use this space to also catch up on news. There really isn't any of that to report this week for the Seahawks other than Jalen Milroe officially signing his contract. But, with the way things are slotted now, that it becomes news in the offseason simply because of what I was talking about earlier, that there just isn't a whole lot else to talk about. I'll also get into some of the things that you can look forward to ahead for this channel as we look forward to moving through the offseason and into training camp and the regular season. Some things that you can look forward to that are actually going to happen that I have planned, and I'll share that with you tonight. But also some things that aren't official yet, but are pretty positive indications of how things might go this fall that I'll share with you tonight as well. And then I thought, just for fun and just for the sake of actually having a tangible subject matter, and also in the spirit of list season, I'm going to give you my favorite top 5 football movies of all time. What inspired this was there were some lists going around, one in particular from a national account a couple of days ago about I think it went 10 deep, and it was just sports movies in general. And it was in my opinion, it was such a bad list. And that seemed to be the overwhelming consensus of everyone else who saw it online too. Maybe that was done intentionally. Maybe it was for, what's it called now? Rage bait, rage engagement. Just sometimes the negative stuff can create as much engagement as you want to. But this is a legitimate list, and not what I think are the 5 best movies of all time, although they kind of go hand in hand, but my 5 favorites, and a couple of them on there. I think one in particular is going to surprise all of you. If I asked all of you to guess which 5 that I would probably select, I think there's one movie on this list that none of you would guess. So, that's fun, and I look forward to that. We're also going to do this. There's a new feature here on StreamYard where I can just show live. Let's see if it gets going here. It should, down here in the corner, down there. See where that little box is? Maybe it's not working. It is a beta program. We did this last night, and it worked pretty well, where it should update and show all your comments live. Yep, there they go. Look at that. Isn't that cool? But I'm going to go back. It does newest first, so we'll go back and hit some of these. And I can still do this too to highlight some. Sean, how's it going? Always good to see you. You as well. John, X-Wing, the Realicon, fellow 12s, let's go. Let's get right into this. X-Wing asks, are you going to be at any of the training camps, or will you still be on the East Coast? So what he's referring to there is I left the Seattle area on February 18th and took a much needed step away from my decades-long career in the hospitality business. Did that for a number of reasons. One was been doing that for a very long time, was experiencing some burnout physically as much as emotionally, had just gone through the most grueling holiday season that I'd ever experienced. I mean, my body was wrecked, and so was my brain a little bit. So it just needed to step away. But the other one was an opportunity to spend at least a couple of months, the thought was at the time, leaning into this and doing this full time and focusing on it full time. And what better time to do that than February, March, April, the offseason, free agency, and the draft. And the Seahawks really cooperated with my plans this year, with all the trades and big moves and everything they made. So that was a lot of fun. And now here we are moving towards June, and I'm still able to do it full time. It's a little anxiety-inducing and stressful at times, but I have a wonderfully supportive partner who helps make it possible as well. And all of you have been very, very gracious and generous in supporting the show and me. But then that other part of it that I touched on was that my fiance and I have largely, for much of our 3 years together, been doing the long distance thing. She is a contract travel nurse, and she will travel around the country and explore new areas and take the best contracts. And in the wintertime, she likes to go where the sunshine is. And we just decided enough was enough, and I was going to go with her. And to be able to do this, I'm mobile and whatnot. So we spent a couple of months in Arizona. Now I'm in West Virginia. To answer, so that's the context, right? To answer your question, there's two possibilities of what could happen at training camp this year. I will either be in Seattle or I will likely be in Arizona again. We're either going to spend the fall and winter in Arizona. I've always wanted to do that, just get the sun and everything else. Or, and this is what I kind of teased earlier, I've been given some pretty strong positive indications from the Seahawks communications director that I may be granted credentials this fall. In which case, if that happens, then my plan is that I would want to be there when training camp opens. That involves a 5-day drive across the country. There's a lot of logistical things that need to be worked out between now and then, and financial things, obviously, and how that's going to work. I'm sketching those things out, making those plans, mapping out trips, working and reworking my budget almost on a daily basis. But somehow, some way, if they do give me those, and again, I'm really positive. Just went back and read the last email I got a couple of days ago, just to remind myself of the verbiage, and it's pretty positive. So I'll know for sure by the beginning of July. I'm supposed to check back as we get closer. In which case, obviously, I'll be there at training camp every single day. If I don't get credentialed, I probably won't be. We'll probably just head straight to Arizona. I may shoot up there for a trip, got a lot of friends and family, and of course, summers are beautiful in Seattle. So maybe I'll pick a preseason game. I'd love to see that Raiders game at the very least. But that being said, I've already promised my season tickets to a good friend of mine and former coworker, because regardless, either whether I'm in Seattle or I'm in someplace else, I won't be using the tickets. So that's where that stands. Thank you for the question. Carmen Schofield says, "Go Hawks." Angry Bucket says, "I've got premium. Love it. It is an awesome, worthwhile investment." Here we go. John McGrath, watching pressure washing videos is relaxing and super satisfying. Just saying. The guy that I started watching that does the landscape stuff also does pressure washing. And that one is great. When I watch the landscape stuff, I do it from the lens of, you couldn't pay me enough to do that. Like, just the fact that the couple of accounts that I've seen that do that are really big, they do it solo, all by themselves. Insane. Would never, ever do that. But pressure washing, is there anything more satisfying than, I do this for my parents in Maple Valley every couple of years. They get the mold and the mildew or whatever it is, the moss that ends up turning the cement almost black, both on their back patio and their driveway. And to see that turn back to natural cement color, like in front of your eyes, and see the before and after, that's pretty satisfying. So yeah, I watch those too. Yeah. Oh, this is so interesting. I learned some really cool stuff about this the other day. Bob says, "By the way, Dan, you realize you're living a John Denver song," just saying. If I were to ask you, and this is something that could win you a lot of money in bar trivia, if I were to ask you what area of the country the Bob Denver song Country Roads was written about, what would you say? Almost Heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, West Virginia. Wrong. First of all, John Denver's never, well, he may have gone through West Virginia, never lived here, never vacationed here, never traveled here, right? There is no Blue Ridge Mountains or Shenandoah River in West Virginia. Where those two things reside are in Western Virginia, the actual state of Virginia. But they lean into it here, man. Everything, like their the website that the state runs, or the Parks Department or whatever, that that talks about all the scenic hikes and things like that. And if you follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever, you've seen that we've done a ton of exploring. The nature here is unbelievable. It's called Almost Heaven. Like they're all about it. They play that song at, I think, West Virginia Mountaineer home games. It's not about the state of West Virginia. A little trivia there for you. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful area of the country. We are really, really loving it. And the fun thing is, we talk a lot about, and I told you we'd get into some non-football stuff today. And by the way, I ran a poll the other day. Some of you may have contributed about, during these next couple months, how would you feel if I did some non-football shows? We could just do a whole show on food takes. Didn't start off great, but ended up finishing up 55-45 in favor. So polarizing, close, but majority wins. And so we will do some of those shows, although we'll probably sprinkle in some Seahawks stuff just to appease the diehards, right? But one of the things that we talk about is we're probably looking at 3 or 4 more years maybe of traveling and kind of doing it this way. If that involves me going to Seattle every football season and then we can bounce out somewhere else, okay. But at some point we're going to want to settle down and find our forever home, and so that isn't necessarily going to be in the Pacific Northwest where I'm from. It's pretty cost prohibitive up there. It's not necessarily going to be in the Midwest, Indiana, Ohio, where her family is. Could be, but it could be someplace like this. Like every place we travel to or even drive through, saw some really incredible parts of the country on the way from Arizona to here. We kind of have an open mind about it and ask ourselves, like, could this be where we live? And the thing about this part of the country, we're always on realtor.com and Redfin looking at houses, and it's shocking. Unbelievable. I had given up long ago as a lifelong Seattle area resident of ever owning a home. That just wasn't going to be for me. And it's sad. It's sad that you essentially have to be rich to own a home in the Seattle metropolitan area or even Western Washington as a whole. Not the case in other parts of the country. And so with her ability to just travel and do short gigs somewhere to make a living and my ability to do this long term, at least as long as I'm able to speak and think, which hopefully is a long time. I think I'm pretty healthy. I think I'm doing all right. Yeah, who knows where that home's going to end up being, but it's just kind of fun. It's like the possibilities are endless every single place we go. And it just also lends just more intrigue and interest to that area. We're looking at it with a different eye, right? Marvin says, you're the best. Thank you. Upcoming content sounds great. Yay 12s. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate you being there. John chips in early with one of his votes. The Replacements, a great football movie. Is that going to be on my list? You'll find out shortly. Football question, the real econ. Do you think the Seahawks would entertain 2 fullbacks on the team or is a free-for-all between outs? Can somebody, if somebody knows for sure, and this is a failure on my part, I absolutely pride myself on getting names right. I really focused on that heading into the draft, like learning how to, to pronounce, Tuimoloau and some of those names and get those right. Is it Robbie Oots? Is it Outs? Is it Oates? If someone could phonetically put that in the comments, that would be great. I need to get that right. I need to be a professional about that. We've talked about this a little bit on the show. I think we talked about it with Max Toscano a little bit in regards to the receiver tight end rostering and also Bryce Coots when we talked about the state of the roster. I think there is an opportunity for Brady Russell and Robbie Oots to both be on the roster at the same time. And it's because they can both be hybrids. There's been a lot of discussion about how much Clint Kubiak likes to use multiple tight ends, uses as much 12 personnel and even 13 personnel as any play caller in the league, or as more than most. And, it's just a Mike McDonald philosophy on defense, but I think it applies more so to the offense this year than any year we've seen, that would really be beneficial to the offense as well. On the offensive line also. Like, if you want to make that team with all that talent there and all the young draft picks there, they're not all going to be able to make this roster. So if you want to help your chances, you better not just play one position, right? Even a guy like Oluwatimi, who's always been a center only throughout his college career, he started doing some cross training as a guard late last season. That could come in handy in the event that, say, Jalen Sundell beats him out for the starting center job. Oluwatimi's ability to play guard, if the team thinks he can play it capably enough, could help him make the roster. I think it applies as much, if not more, to this position than any other, because I think they're going to carry 4 tight ends. Because if you're going to use 3 at a time in a game, you're going to need 4 on the roster. And they've carried 4 on the roster in many years past, even when they weren't using a lot of 12 personnel. And so, when you start to talk about A.J. Barner, Elijah Arroyo, Schobert, who they signed for a very specific role from the 49ers. Now, that contract's not cost prohibitive. If they like the tight ends they have when they get to camp, he could certainly not make the 53. He's not a lock. Noah Fant's not a lock. I know a lot of you tell me almost on a daily basis, get him off the roster, save that $13.5 million. To which my answer is always, A, they like him. He's in the physical prime of his career. I think Clint Kubiak wants to see what he can do with him. And at the moment, the money is insignificant. The Seahawks have plenty of cap space to cover that $13.5 million. It's not preventing them from doing anything else. And then they drafted Elijah Arroyo in the second round. Arroyo. I keep getting that wrong. That's a tricky one. Every other athlete we've ever seen that has that spelling of a last name, it's usually pronounced Arroyo. But in his case, I learned this from Daniel Jeremiah, it's Arroyo. And, sky's the limit for him. They have big plans for him. So if they get into camp and they really like what they get from all those other guys, then, yeah, Fant might not make the team. They might just save that money, especially if they start to extend some of these younger players that are eligible for extensions. Charles Cross, I think, is a legitimate candidate to be extended before the season starts. I don't think it's going to happen for Kenneth Walker. I don't think it's going to happen for Boye Mafe either. We can talk about that. Reek Woolen, maybe, like some of those guys, right? Then they certainly could move Fant off the roster. But that's where Brady, Russell, and Robbie Oates comes in. Because Robbie played tight end at Alabama. He's being converted to fullback. So if that conversion goes well, and they have big plans for him, I consider him a lock. And actually, foreshadowing, I'm going to do my first offseason 53-man roster projection tomorrow. So look forward to that. He can run routes and he can play tight end. He can be in line. And so that gives him that flexibility where you're not taking up a whole running back / fullback spot on the roster when you don't have any other duties. But Brady Russell could certainly do that as well. We know, because he's a tight end being converted to fullback also. And so maybe they feel like, they do want to move Fant off the roster because they think Arroyo's ready for big minutes, and they like A.J. Barner in his second year, and they think Schobert, really fills that inline blocking role, and they value that veteran experience. Then Brady Russell could be your 4th tight end, but he could also play some fullback or protect you in the event that Oates gets hurt. So, yeah, I think it could absolutely this is going to be the most interesting cut to 53 I think we've ever seen because of the scheme changes and the different ways in which Kubiak uses personnel is going to impact the roster. Many times over the last 10, 15 years, the Seahawks have broke camp, and that initial 53-man roster has had 6 wide receivers on it, sometimes 7. I don't see that happening this year. I think it could be, I'd be surprised if it's more than 5, to be honest with you, because Clint Kubiak doesn't run. He likes to use tight ends and 2 backs, which means he doesn't run as much 3 wide receiver sets, as many 3 wide receiver sets as a lot of other teams these days. And so that just wouldn't necessitate having 6 and 7 receivers on the team. Let's talk about Trey Hendrickson. We've done this before, but I think it's picking up steam because of some of his comments as he came to minicamp to avoid being fined. I don't buy into the Bengals not trading Hendrickson if someone makes a solid offer to get him. What do you think the Seahawks could realistically offer and trade to make it happen? That part I don't know. I have no idea what a 31-year-old edge rusher in the last year of his deal would command in trade value. No idea. The tricky part here is just that the Bengals, and I talked to Max Toscano about this because he covers the Bengals for SI. They have historically been really stubborn and stingy in dealing with other teams. They don't typically make big trades to acquire players. They don't typically make big trades up or down in the draft. They don't typically trade their players. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Hendrickson's not happy, but at the end of the day, I think they end up working something out. I've talked about Hendrickson before. Certainly the idea of him is exciting. And if they were to go out and get him tomorrow, we would celebrate. We would have an emergency podcast, and it would be a great thing because he would give them something they don't really have in that edge group. We like the edge group, but there really isn't that dominant, explosive pass rusher. And certainly Trey Hendrickson is that. 35 sacks the last 2 years, right? Is that the number? Now, the downside is he's not an elite run defender, but you can live with it because they have those on the roster, right? DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu, maybe a 2. You know, the thing is you'd have to give him a new deal too. He says he will not play on that last year of the deal, not in Cincinnati, not elsewhere. So there'd have to be a window where you're also going to have to give him a big contract. Now, that usually results in a lesser draft compensation, a lower pick from the team acquiring the player because they're then going to have to dole out a major contract. Not always. Frank Clark got a first-round pick and then a $100 million contract from the Chiefs, right? Maybe a 2 gets it done. And I honestly, that's one of those trades that, this may sound wishy-washy, but I'd be upset if they gave up a 2. As I sit here right now, I don't want to do that. I think that's too valuable for a young team on the rise. But it's Trey Hendrickson, and the production is there, and he's all about ball. I think he fits the Seahawks profile, and so I'd get over it pretty quick. We give up a 2 for Leonard Williams, right? So I would do that. I wouldn't do a 1, not for a 31-year-old that you're going to have to pay north of $30 million a year for. MWM as his first guess. He says, I'm guessing Any Given Sunday is on the list because it would be on mine. Is it? We'll get to that in a minute. Michael brings up the fact that PFF came out with their preseason quarterbacks ranking and have Sam Darnold listed as 26th in the league. I saw that. Where did they have Geno? I'm trying to remember. Was it like 10th or 11th? Here's my thing with PFF. I use the numbers as a reference point. I do think it gives you some context, in particular in situations like this. Seahawks had Rasul Douglas in for a visit 2 weeks ago, I think, the veteran corner. You know, off the top of my head, I had no idea of whether he was coming off a good year or not. I knew generally that he was a very productive and very solid corner who had great ball skills and had ball production over the last few years. But, you know, go to PFF and see that his grades were down last year after like 3 straight solid seasons. Okay, that gives you some context. Are his skills diminishing, or was he banged up? Was he playing through an injury? Was it a bad scheme fit on a new team? The thing about PFF's lists, however, and this applies to their mock draft simulator too, and this is both a positive and a negative. I give them credit for, and I respect the conviction that they have about their grading system. They stick religiously to their grades. So when they come out with this list of the 30 top, or the 32, I guess, whatever it was, however deep it went, the best quarterbacks, let's rank the quarterbacks in the NFL. They don't take intangibles into account at all. They don't take youth, contract, any of that. They strictly go by their grading system. So I hesitate to rip them for a list like this because, and now I'm not remembering if they just went off 2025 or 2024 numbers or career numbers. If they go off career numbers, it's completely understandable because Sam Darnold struggled early in his career and he's been on a slow trajectory. He gets better every year, very Geno Smith-like, but it's going to take a little while, right, for that score to overcome the bad scores early in his career. So I have a hard time ripping them for that. He's not the 26th best quarterback in the league. John asks, do you think Mafe can become a truly dominant edge rusher? If he does, would they re-sign him to a huge contract? Yes. And I don't think so. Mafe is interesting to me. I think he has a medium-high floor. I think what he is what he is. You can count on him. But what he has the traits. He has the burst. He has the bend. He has the explosiveness. He's a good enough run defender. We've seen him be dominant at times in beating guys off the edge and getting the quarterback, but he doesn't do it consistently enough. And that's a huge concern for me 3 years into the league. You know, you can make excuses for players in their first couple of years in the league. Learning the league, obviously, learning new techniques, maturing physically. That doesn't always happen until you're 25, 26 years old. And if I recall, I think Mafe was one of the very youngest prospects coming out in his draft. But he just doesn't do it consistently enough. And so I just don't know. Would they give him a huge contract? I hesitate to say yes to that, because Derek Hall is going to be right behind him, right on his heels a year later. There will be needs. You can absolutely justify $30 million a year for Boye Mafe if that's what it takes, because in that case, I think you swap out Uchenna Nwosu's salary as well. I don't think he's going to be on the roster in 2026. And so, you can easily get there without really negatively impacting the rest of the roster. You probably are going to get to a point at some juncture where you're going to be paying one of your edge rushers big money. Do you consider Leonard Williams an edge rusher? Is that the guy you're already paying that kind of money to, right? They just drafted Riley Mills, and he's more of a hybrid. He's going to play some inside and outside. I don't know. It would have to be one of those transcendent seasons where there's absolutely no doubt that this guy has arrived and he's a superstar, and you can count on it every single week. But keep in mind, and I mentioned this name just a couple minutes ago, they didn't want to pay Frank Clark $20 million a year at the end of his rookie contract when he was coming off a big year. Traded him, franchised him, and then traded him. Now, different people, different scenario. There were some off-field issues with Frank Clark and maybe some concerns on the part of the Seahawks. I don't know how strong those concerns were. They brought him back later in his career, right? But maybe we see a similar scenario. The other thing is next year's free agent class, as we sit here today anyway, obviously some of these guys might get extended. That edge class could be massive. And so I could see a scenario where they let him test the market. If he doesn't get the number he wants, he can come back and get the Seahawks number. But if he does move on, someone breaks the bank and pays him because he's young, they could turn around and make a play for one of these other edge rushers. Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt. Like, it's a big class. So I think it's one of the bigger storylines of the season as we move forward. What are we going to get out of Boye Mafe? Let's see. Here we go. X-Wing says, congrats on possibly getting credentials. I've got a pool of standby passes on Alaska. Just another travel option. I appreciate that. Might have to check on that. Absolutely. One of the priorities will be to get the Alaska mileage card. That's for damn sure. And I was already mapping out. I was on Expedia the other day, just looking at every single road game and to see, each market, what it would cost for a flight and a hotel room. And most of them are pretty reasonable. Being that it's a year that there's 9 road games, might not be realistic to think that I could go to all of them. But also I had a viewer suggest to me recently in a DM that I could possibly just have like an ongoing sort of GoFundMe that, like, hey, if you want to help contribute to send me to these away games, it's there for you. If you don't, cool, whatever. But I also, once I'm back in Seattle as well, like, I have my old employment that I could, on a very flexible basis, could pick up hours pretty much whenever I want to and make a little side money. It's fun to think that this is the main gig, though, even in the worst case scenario, and that would be the side gig. I like that. Let's see. Dave says, hope you get credentialed. Your coverage is great. Would take it to another level. Let's go, Dan. I appreciate that. It would be a fun moment for me. It would truly be full circle. I don't know how many of you know this, but broadcasting is my background. Went to school for it, got a degree in it, spent 6 years as a television sports anchor, reporter, play-by-play guy in small markets. And my first 4 years, I was in the Tri-Cities working at the CBS station there. And so I would come over for like 4 or 5 days at a time and cover Seahawks training camp back then in the decade of the 90s. So it'd be kind of cool to come full circle and be able to cover training camp now with this current group. It'd be a lot of fun. John asks, haven't heard anything regarding them bringing back Griffin to play cornerback. Is that a dead issue now, or is he still an option? I was thinking about that a lot this week. They're obviously kicking the tires. I think the analogy, the comparison here, is the way that they handled the guard position in free agency. There are some guys that they think would fit and that they like, and they're checking them out. They're kicking the tires. They're doing due diligence, but they have to be convinced that that player is going to fit, that the money is right, and that player understands what their role would be, because they would not be coming in here to be a starter. The Seahawks starters are set. There's nobody on the free agent market right now that would come in and be a no-brainer starter. You know, right now it's Reek Woolen, Josh Jobe, and Devin Witherspoon. Those are your three guys. And so, barring a trade for someone, not Jalen Ramsey, someone probably that we're not even thinking about, I think they're just trying to find the right fit, but they're not going to force it. What's your best guess on how many plays they're going to have for Milroe this season, and will they mostly be red zone goal line plays, in your opinion? Second part of that question, yes. I think that'll primarily be the situation. Early, anyway. Best guess for how many plays? 5 or 6. You know, trying to think here, and with football being 5 months in my rearview mirror, like how many third and shorts and red zone short yardage situations come up in a game? Sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes 10. Sometimes you play the New York Jets and you have 7 straight from the 1 yard line. God, he would have helped in that game, wouldn't he? Or what's the other one that we couldn't convert? Was it the Giants game where it came down to a third and short, fourth and short, couldn't convert on third and short. JSN dropped the 4th down pass. Am I thinking of the right game? I'd say, half dozen. But if it really goes well and it clicks and he starts to have like a Taysom Hill impact, then I've thought of this as well. Maybe it's not just short yardage. What if you're in a 3rd and 12 and it seems kind of desperate? Like, wouldn't the pose of, the risk of him breaking off a big run pose so much stress on the defense? And plus his ability as a deep ball thrower, like maybe that would be kind of a curveball you could throw at the defense. Like, they game plan for you all week and they think, well, they're going to tush push with him. We might see him in the red zone and goal line. We might see him on 4th down. And then here it's 3rd and 12, so they're not even thinking about it. And here comes Jalen Milroe. What do we do now? Now, I think if you do that, the question of how does it impact Sam Darnold and the continuity and the rhythm of your starting quarterback, it might be a little bit more pronounced in that situation, but I absolutely think that we're going to see him. I said the day he was drafted that he's going to help the Seahawks win games in 2025, and I truly believe that, as maybe more so today than I did then. Yeah, this is a legitimate point. Carmen says, Daniel Jeremiah on Brock and Salk said that the percentage of teams that utilize QB packages, as Mike McDonald has said, Milroe will be used, is little to none. Absolutely. And he mentioned, it's been a long time since we saw Cordell Stewart. And he even specifically mentioned, he said, that's an idea that sounds great upstairs, but then you get downstairs and you hesitate. And I get that, right? There are certain things that you conceptualize and you game plan for, but when the bullets start flying, you just aren't sure about it. I don't think Mike McDonald's that kind of guy. We saw him in his first season. going for it on fourth down more than we've seen any Seahawks coach do, right? So I think if they have a plan and it's in the game plan, and we've seen Kubiak be really, really creative too. We saw it in New Orleans last year with some of the stuff he did with Rashid Shaheed before he got hurt, and some of the stuff, obviously, that he did with Taysom Hill. Now, Taysom Hill was more established, clearly, so maybe he had more confidence in it. But I think the conviction from the front office and the buy-in from the coaching staff to take Milroe at 92, with this being part of the plan, I don't see them chickening out, for lack of a better term, when they've game planned for it. Rhymes with boots. Thank you, X-Wing. Oots. Okay, I like that. Yeah, I like that. Robbie Oots. I think, I'll tell you what. I don't think he got enough attention in this draft class. I think he was kind of treated as a novelty and like, hey, that's cool. I think, yeah, this could work. I think he has a chance to be the best fullback in the league. Like the way he moves at that body size, and the fact he has played some tight end. And I remember watching him at the combine. I'd never, ever heard of him leading into the combine. I'm like, they have CJ Dupree coming out of Alabama. Like, he's a solid tight end with some good pro prospects. Who's this guy? They got two tight ends. They got a run blocking tight end with 8 catches in his career that got invited to the combine. So, and then you see him run and do some of those tests, and you're like, oh, he wishes he was Will Dissly, right? But then he gets out and he ran some routes and he did some of the movement stuff, and I thought, okay, this guy's got some upside. I wish I would have been smart enough to think, fullback. But he almost has a Zabel-like attitude and approach to life in the game too, like just a football player, man. I think he's got a chance to be Kyle Juszczyk, Patrick Richard. I really do. I think he's a guy that could be the cool thing too. If you hit on a fullback, like he can be a career Seahawk, because he's never going to be able to demand huge money. Like that position's kind of capped out financially, right? So really excited about the prospects of what he can do. Park predicts they're going to carry 3 quarterbacks and 4 tight ends. They're absolutely going to carry 3 quarterbacks. They're not going to risk losing Milroe to the practice squad, and they're not going to I don't see a scenario where they feel comfortable enough having him as the backup quarterback. I think Drew Lock was a legitimate signing. I think they wanted to bring Drew back last year, really wanted to. It was just that the Giants offered him potential starter money and an opportunity to play. There's no way the Seahawks are going to be able to match $8 million. And so, 3 quarterbacks are going to be on the roster. 4 tight ends. That makes it tricky because Kubiak likes to use 2 running backs quite a bit as well. And they've got a talented running back room. We just went over that the other day on the show. I think they're going to carry 4 running backs. Maybe Kenny McIntosh is the odd man out because I'm that high on Damian Martinez. But as much as Kubiak likes to play with 2 backs, and with Ken Walker's injury history, I think they do carry 4 running backs. And so it's going to be a challenge. It's one of the things I'm really excited about. I had said, I think a couple of weeks ago on the show, I probably wasn't going to do a 53 until maybe after mandatory minicamp. But because of this issue, I'm going to do the exercise tomorrow and present it to you, as much for, I want to see how it looks. Like, how are you going to make some of those decisions? You can take from some other spots. I do think there's an opportunity. Maybe you go with 1 fewer offensive lineman than you typically carry, because everyone on the roster so far, with the exception of Mike Jarrell, I don't think Mike Jarrell can play left tackle, and that's why I think he's on the bubble and he could be in trouble in this roster. Everyone can play multiple positions. And so maybe that allows you to carry 1 less offensive lineman. Maybe they only carry 4 true edge players this year instead of 5. They've always carried 5. Mike McDonald liked to carry 5. But how many snaps did Trevis Gibson get last year, right? Could you maybe take 1 out of the combined secondary group, because so many of those guys are versatile and can play in the box, can play deep from the safety position. If you have Emin Wari playing nickel a majority of the time, or a good percentage of the time. Maybe you only have to carry 4 corners where sometimes you carry 5 or 6. Some of this is predicated and dictated by special teams also. But the way McDonald values versatility on defense, maybe you only need 1 inside linebacker depth piece instead of sometimes they carry 2, right? And so maybe you rob from that a little bit because guys can play different positions and they're not just locked in. Let's see. Bob says, I'll ask again now that there are over 50 viewers. Any other 50-year fans in this group? John answered 36, which is pretty good. Me. So my family, my dad, we moved around a lot growing up because my dad worked for Union Oil Company. He was a credit manager, and it was a type of position where you didn't work out of a big giant corporate office. You worked out of satellite, like regional offices. And so if you wanted a promotion, you wanted to try and better yourself, you had to transfer. And so we moved. It was almost like a military family. Like, I was born in Mount Vernon. We lived there till I was 5. We moved to Missoula, Montana for 3 years, Bend, Oregon for 3 years, up to Bellevue, over to Chicago, back to Bellevue. Well, we came back for good in 1976. And it was cool because that was the year that I started getting into sports. And then, of course, that was also the year that we got the Mariners and the Seahawks. And so my dad right away got season tickets. And then he gave them up, I think, in 83 or 82 because it was expensive. They weren't very good. And then 83 happened and he got them back again. So I've had these tickets since 1984. I pretty much took them over full time in the early 2000s because my dad isn't physically able to go to games anymore. But yeah, I went to games in 1976 as a 14-year-old, 13, 14-year-old. So, yep, I'm a 50-year member. In fact, I think that's going to be, because we stopped there for a couple of years. The Seahawks, when you're a season ticket holder, you get to choose from like a couple of gifts that they send you out every year. And this year it's a jacket. It's a pretty cool coat. Like sometimes those gifts have been sort of shitty, but this year it's pretty cool. And last year, the year before, it was a hat, and it said season ticket holder since '84. They were customized, and I think the jacket also, it has like a band on the arm that says the same thing. I'm a little pissed at Dad for getting rid of the tickets that one year, because I'll never be able to say season ticket holder since '76. So I'm one. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Park is. I guess it's 52 years now, right? Went to my first game in '83 at the Kingdom, got Norm Johnson's autograph at that game. What's your earliest, for those of you that have been going for a long time, your earliest Seahawk memory? Nope, don't answer that. I'm going to make that a standalone show, that'll be a live stream in a couple weeks. So don't answer that. If you already did, I just want to address it. That's a fun topic. Stats-wise, the Seahawks had a top 10 defense last year. How much do you think they will be able to improve in year 2 of Mike Macdonald's scheme? Well, if you caught my conversation with Griffin Sturgeon the other day, he said the one concern he has about the defense is their run defense off of play action. That they were in the bottom half of the league last year. They were like 25th, I think he referenced. He said if they can get that aspect back up to fifth, middle of the pack, then they're a top 5 overall defense. And that's where I see them landing. He also referenced, and Mike Macdonald talked about this again today. I don't know if you saw some of the content that Kurt Benkert, the former Green Bay Packer practice squad player, he's become a content creator. He does some pretty cool stuff. He was in Seattle today. And he got to spend a couple hours with Mike Macdonald. He was throwing the football around at Lumen Field. I think Macdonald told him, if all my quarterbacks die, I thought this was a little dark, but also funny, I'll give you a call. You can still sling it. But one of the things Macdonald told him is he wants to blitz more. And Griffin referenced that this last year he didn't disguise coverages and do as many simulated pressures as he did in Baltimore, which makes sense because it was his first year installing a new scheme with a new team. They had some personnel issues early in the season, had to swap out their linebackers, and that's a huge part of that. Griffin mentioned that the play action run defense is predicated largely on safety play and inside linebacker play. And so maybe he tried to kind of dumb it down and keep it simple. And so that excites me because I wondered about that. I'd done all the studying, and had people on the show, and they talked about how that scheme was run in Baltimore. And then it was kind of vanilla at times here. But the results were still good. And so if McDonald's saying, hey, we're going to cut it loose a little bit more, I'm especially excited how that's going to look week one, because the 49ers aren't going to have that on tape from the Seahawks last year. They might have to go back and look at like Baltimore Ravens tape to get ready for it. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And let's hope that they come out of the gate firing like that, because I think we all expect this offense to have some growing pains. There's so many new people, moving parts, new coaching staff, new scheme. That being said, though, look at the start the Saints got off to last year in the same situation with Clint Kubiak and John Benton, right? Hank, what are you most excited for next season? Personally, hopefully to cover the team. But I think it's to see the offense. I really do. We have, for so many years here, it's been such a topic of conversation, like bad play calling, lack of continuity, inconsistency, poor offensive line play, lack of commitment to the run game, not enough play action, slow developing pass plays, like the things that Kubiak is going to bring, especially with that coaching staff. And the personnel changes, obviously. As Garret talked about last night, one of the things that excites him the most about the Seahawks is he thinks they raised the floor with a lot of their signings, guys like Cooper Kupp, DeMarcus Lawrence, like that raises the floor. Gray Zabel raises the floor of that offensive line group, and the fact that there's continuity among the rest of it, as much as some of you wanted to wash out 4 of the 5 spots, that would have just started them over at square one again. There's going to be some continuity. I think the floor is a little bit higher. I'm really excited to see. It's been far too long since we've been able to count on week in, week out, an offense that can be versatile and multiple and attack in different ways, can beat you running the football or throwing the football, quick game, deep game, play action, running inside and outside. I'm really encouraged by the fact that Kubiak always has escape hatches built into every passing play. There's always a hot route. That was not the case with Ryan Grubb. And so sometimes when fans would like to pile onto Geno and say, well, he held the ball too long, there was no hot route. He had 4 guys running 15 yards down the field. There was nowhere to go with the ball. And so I think Kubiak's protection schemes and the 12 personnel and use of a fullback, I think is going to help with that a lot. And that's what I'm most excited about seeing. This is interesting. John always asks good questions, man. Everybody wants to know who's going to replace DK's production, but who do you see replacing Lockett's production? Can Horton do it? The first thing that popped into my mind reading this question is Moneyball, right? Like you can't replace Jason Giambi because we can't afford to. That was their case. But you can't replace him with one other player. He's not out there. You replace him in the aggregate. And so I think, JSN taking another step forward in year 3. Cooper Kupp being healthy. Jake Bobo, I think, not being ignored and forgotten. Grubb just didn't pay attention, just didn't use him last year. I think especially in those tight formations, those condensed formations and bunches, he can be almost a Cooper Kupp-like big slot and a real dangerous weapon in the middle of the field, especially in short yardage and third downs. And then you add Torrey Horton to that mix. And even, maybe by the end of the season, Ricky White starts to work into that. I think you replace it in the aggregate. And with the tight ends, I think Elijah Arroyo is going to take some of those touches as well. I think they have big plans for him. Favorite flavor of wings? First of all, I love wings. In fact, it's so funny you asked this because I was out today, had a really productive day. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter. I'm really committed to getting back in shape before training camp starts. And so today was the day. I went running for the first time in years, went to the gym, then I went to the grocery store, got a bunch of shit done, right? And as I was going to the grocery store, there was a Buffalo Wild Wings right there. My girl doesn't like wings, but I fucking love them. I like all flavors. I like going to B-Dubs or Wingstop or whatever and trying all the flavors, right? And I saw that today and I said, okay, I'm going to give myself like 2 weeks, right? Like went to the grocery store today, stocked the fridge, no sweets, no junk food, got a meal plan. We're going to eat healthy. She's committed to it, everything else. But I said, I'm going to give myself 2 weeks to kind of get into this, and then I'm going to reward myself after a few weeks. I'm going to take myself to Buffalo Wild Wings one night when she's working and dig in. But if I did just choose one, man, I'm a traditionalist. Buffalo, classic Buffalo with basically the Frank's flavor, the Buffalo flavor, but with butter as well. I'm a sucker for that. And I'll tell you what, my favorite wings in the Seattle area, and I usually prefer naked wings. I don't like wings with a lot of breading. But Marco Polo on 4th Avenue in Soto, it's a Coug-owned bar. It's an outstanding Coug bar, but go there for the food. They have great burgers and stuff too. Excellent beer on tap. It's a really cool place. One of the best sports bars in Seattle. Their wings, and they only do 2 sauces. They do barbecue and they do traditional buffalo. But they pressure cook. I think that's the term for it. They pressure cook their wings. You know the way that really good fried chicken places do it, where you don't just drop it in the fryer, but the fryer has a lid that you close down and it keeps the steam and everything. It takes longer. You cook it at a lower temperature. But because of that, they come out crispy, but they come out more moist and juicy. These things are big and they're juicy. And sometimes I don't even ask them to sauce the wings. I like it on the side so I can kind of pick and choose. If you haven't had wings at Marco Polo in Seattle, definitely check it out. What's my go-to game day food? I might have said wings a couple of years ago, but if I'm watching a game with my girl, it's hot dog, man. It's a dog. If I go to a Seahawks game and I just want to grab something to eat, I'm grabbing a dog. I'm grabbing one of the I don't know, I can't remember what they call it. Is it a Seahawks dog? But like you go to a Mariner game, it's a Mariner dog, like really good, fat, high quality hot dog. Sometimes I'll load it up with sauerkraut if they have it, or onions or relish. But usually, again, I'm kind of a traditionalist, like ketchup and mustard. Boom. Yeah, I'm a hot dog guy. Hot dog, Diet Coke. Maybe I grab some Cheetos to go with it. John says, how much longer can they continue to play solid defense up front without a true nose tackle? I think having a guy that's 340 pounds, that's young, that has a high trajectory, that I think we would all like to have that guy, but I think half the teams in the league don't have that guy and would like to have him. They're hard to find. I think they're fine without him for now. I think it might be a huge priority in the draft next year. If they get to camp and Hankins is done, like I use the analogy of, the old designated hitter, the power hitter that, when they lose their bat speed, it happens overnight. It doesn't happen gradually. It happens overnight. If they get to camp and they're like, he's done, he can't make the 53, then they're going to be shopping for a guy, I think. But I came up with this phrase a few weeks ago. They can get by without having a true nose tackle, but because they have enough guys on the team that could do nose tackle things. And I actually think it plays into that Mike McDonald philosophy of being versatile and not having cookie cutter defenders and moving guys in and out. You don't really know from one play to the next who's going to play zero technique or inside shade. I've stopped stressing about it. I think they're fine. I think if they thought it was a necessity, they would have aggressively acquired it somehow. So that's where I stand on that. Let's see. Great questions tonight, guys. I love doing this. All right. So we're going to talk about the radio stuff. Are we? I'm never going to be one to publicly bash my colleagues for a couple of reasons. I don't think it could ever benefit me in any way. I'm not a hot take guy. I'm not a rage bait or a clickbait guy. That's not my business plan. That's not the concept of this channel. My buzz term is thoughtful analysis. It's the way I've always been. It's the way my brain works. It's the way I was when I was younger. And the older I get even more balanced and objective and thoughtful, I think, for the most part. Y'all can probably remember some moments where I might have seemed a little more unreasonable than other times, but that happens. That's called passion. But here's my thing. First of all, I think by and large, most of the on-air talent in Seattle is pretty good. Now I have my preferences, right? I stopped listening as an example, and I'll get around to answering your question here in a second. But I think it touches on something that's timely because of the Mark James stuff. Mark James that happened at KJR a couple of days ago. KJR and Seattle sports have two very different approaches to what they do, right? There's more than one way to skin a cat. Hopefully they didn't hear that. There's 3 cats behind this green screen. KJR is very fan-based, passion-based, gut feeling, homer, honks, right? That's why Softy is he's the poster child. He's the landmark of that station, has been for years. There's that approach. But even when it was Gastineau and Grosby, like those guys weren't analytic brains. Like there were times, Grosby's a freaking legend, but there were times where it sounded like he just rolled out of bed and walked into the station and just winged it and didn't do any prep, right? Just because he was just a passionate fan and he was going to lean into that. And that's kind of been their concept. Seattle sports, I think, is a little bit more journalistic in how they approach things. And that's my preference. And so it's hard for me to slam. I have my favorites and I'll talk privately with people about that, but it just doesn't, did a show with Brandon Kane last year. Love Brandon Kane. And he used the old term of the rising tide raises all ships. Is that the term? I think that's how it goes. That, for example, as a content creator community, we can all raise each other up. And for the most part, when it comes to just content creators, I love and respect them all. And that's why I go on their shows, they come on my shows. I don't think there's anyone that does content, Seahawks content, with one exception that I've never had on the show or wouldn't have on the show. I think you know who that is. I've hinted about it, but I'm not just going to come out and slam that person. that's just not what I do. But I don't think we can all succeed. There's so much demand for what we do. There's enough to go around. We can all succeed. We can all make a living doing it. Some of it's timing and luck, that YouTube has become TV now and that people are watching it as such. People are sitting around after dinner and watching YouTube together. I have people contact me and they say, hey, my wife and I listen to you, watch your show every night. You know, it's just kind of the new way of things. But when it comes to the radio market, I was just having this conversation with a couple of people today. Pretty in-depth, some off-the-record stuff too. Found out some things today about some people from some insiders. That's not flattering. It's not great. But from a strictly on-air perspective, the Pacific Northwest is a unique market. It's not New York. In New York, you can get by being an asshole. You almost have to be, because there's so much media. To stand out or even to get a question in sometimes, you gotta fight. And sometimes you have to be a little abrasive. And then there's this whole new genre that ESPN created that I hate, where we got to argue with each other in order to be provocative and to be interesting. And it's so contrived, in my opinion, these debate shows. The guy on the left doesn't truly always believe what he's saying, and the guy on the right doesn't either. They predetermine and they plan it. You be good cop, I'll be bad cop. You take this side of the argument, I'll take this one. I freaking hate that. That's why I haven't watched anything on ESPN other than live sporting events for probably 10 years. And so, that being said, the Pacific Northwest is a different animal. Like, you have to be likable. People have tried to be brash and bold, and it doesn't work all that well. They're also very resistant and skeptical of outsiders. If you're not a lifelong Seahawk, Mariner, Sounder, Kraken fan, they immediately are going to count you out and dismiss you. Some examples. I thought Paul Gallant was solid. Thought he was pretty good. He was a pro. You know, maybe you don't like the tone of his voice or his cadence or whatever. That's a whole different story. But he did his job well. But he wasn't from here. No one had ever heard of him. He came from another market. And so the market never really accepted him. Thought he did a pretty solid job, but he was fired after, 2 years? He went right back to Houston where he's from. He's doing well there. This Mark James is the latest example of it, where he just misread the region, misread the room. And maybe it's not his fault. Maybe the station hired him for that reason and thought, hey, it's working for ESPN. Let's get an asshole on the air. Well, it's backfired. And I don't know how long he is for this region now, because I just don't think in the long term it's going to fit, especially what's happened now. People are just going to reject him. In a long way, coming back around to answer your question, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Mike Salk. I think he's very, very good at his job. He's very smart. He's very dedicated. He's very hardworking. He's a very good interviewer. He might be the best interviewer in that market now, since, it used to be Mitch Levy, hands down. But he's a Boston guy. And some people just won't forgive him for that. And also, he does push it sometimes. And I wouldn't say that I've heard him that often become abrasive, but he'll get assertive and aggressive on certain points. And I do think that one of the things that turns some people off is he's not afraid to criticize, not afraid to be negative. And when he gets on a soapbox, sometimes he doesn't let it go. I know he really turned some people off because he just wouldn't stop talking about trading DK Metcalf. He's talked about it for the last 2 years. But from a talent standpoint, I think he's very, very good. That's my opinion. When it comes to broadcasters, my opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's kind of like when we look at quarterbacks in the league. Fans, analysts have their favorites or their opinions on quarterbacks, whether one's good or bad. And once you make up your mind on a quarterback, we see this during draft season with prospects and established quarterbacks, you can't change people's minds. You just can't. And so, it might not be your cup of tea. Maybe you don't like his voice. Maybe you just don't like the way or maybe it's just the fact that he's from Boston and that pisses you off. I don't know. But I really like him, and I think he does a really good job. So, there you go. What do we got? What's your favorite brand for Seahawks hats? Right there. 47. 47, man. I like low profile, unconstructed, right? I can't stand hats that like stick up, like they kind of have to form to the head. I have some like that. But this is my favorite brand, kind of hat. And this is kind of one of the only ones I can wear lately, because one thing that I did not take into account when I decided which hats to bring me on this journey, I had like 10 Seahawk hats with me. 8 of them, because I have this one. This is one of my favorites too. This is a new era. It's the military one from a couple of years ago. But see how that works okay? If the other 8 all have action green somewhere in the logo or on the bill, and it's a chroma key color, and so it acts like a green screen. And so there's jerseys. I brought jerseys and hoodies with me. Can't wear them. A rookie move, man. But yeah, I love the 47 stuff. I love, I've got a Hawk Zone Rundown hat. It's not 47 brand, but it's the same kind of idea that Bryce Coots sent me when they started doing their merch. And by the way, it's a struggle. I'm trying to set up an online store, get some merch done. It's just, there's so many, you can't just pick like one company and attach it to YouTube. There's like payment processing, and you have to link that to the ones that create the merch and send it out. And then you have to link it to the YouTube widget, and I'll get it. But that hat, I like the distressed look, the ones that kind of come brand new, but they look beat up and they've got little tears and stuff. It looks like you've had it for 20 years. So I'm a sucker for that type of hat. Some people like the fitted. I can't stand fitted anymore, because for it to fit well enough, it's got to be kind of tight, and that wears on me after a while. I like to be able to adjust it myself. Plus, I don't really wear hats backwards as much anymore. When I did used to wear hats backwards more, I would get fitted hats or flex fit hats that were closed in the back. to the point that I don't even know what my size is anymore. Cray says, should I be wanking nachos? Not sure about your use of the word wanking there, but nachos are great. And that's another one. That's probably my second go-to, especially at a baseball game, but I'll do it at a football game too. And I won't get the giant loaded ones because they're just messy, right? They're hard to eat. I still want to be able to watch the game and enjoy it, but I'll just get the old school round corn tortilla chips with just the cheese sauce. You know, it used to, my go-to drunk food used to be 7-Eleven nachos, the chili cheese out of the machine. So maybe that's where that comes from. Like even sometimes at home when I'm craving that sort of flavor profile, I'll get a bag of Doritos, nacho cheese or Cool Ranch, got to go classic. And then I'll get 3 things: a can of the Nally's hot bean dip, a can of the Nally's jalapeno cheddar, and then sour cream. And then you dip. Sometimes you get all 3 on the chip at the same time. There's a reason that I have 30% body fat, guys. Like, I love food, and it ain't kale. All right, back to football. John says, do you think Kubiak will finally be the one to actually utilize the tight ends properly as a main weapon on offense? Yeah, because he has a history of doing it, and they've committed to doing it personnel-wise. I think that's a big part of this thing. I think it's really going to help him on third down and short yardage too. I really do. What's my favorite part about the team? Talking about like position group, personnel group. Man, that's a good one. I'm going to take some heat for this. And this is just like, if you gave me more time to think about it, like this is just what popped in my head. I really like John Schneider. And I like the way he goes about doing his business. And I felt that way. Now, he had some rough years, right? But I don't think it was all on him. I think just the organization as a whole, they just kind of, there was some tug of war, not necessarily tug of war, because he and Pete didn't fight. They were mostly aligned. They kind of lost their way in their evaluation process after the Super Bowl. But once they got back on track, like I just love the way he goes about doing his business. Here's an example. Have you seen the video that's been going around that the Baltimore Ravens produced about their process of making their first round selection as they were getting close? They were on deck and then they were on the clock, and they were thinking about Malachi Starks and a couple other guys. And they had some offers to move back, and they had 3 guys that they really liked, but they liked Starks the most. And they were afraid that if they moved back, they'd lose all 3 of those guys. And they actually showed this kind of stuff the Seahawks never do. They actually showed the conversation between Eric DaCosta and some of his top lieutenants. And even Ozzie Newsome was still sitting at the table, even though he retired. And the conversation they were having, and Eric DaCosta is one of the best in the business. But the conversations they were having, it almost reminded me of the movie Draft Day, foreshadowing, where it was like they were just having this conversation for the first time. Like, which guy do you like the best? What should we do? That's not how John Schneider runs his draft board and his scouting staff. They go through 6 different iterations of the board over the course of 3 or 4 months. And once they settle on the board, for the most part, they stick to it religiously. Look at how quickly they make their decisions. There were a couple times in this draft, and even at 18, they were entertaining some offers to move back, because I think once ZELLE got past Miami, I think they thought, well, maybe we could scoot back a little bit, still get him and add another pick. But they don't mess around. Look how quickly they turn the card in. I was following the draft because I was doing it live and I couldn't show the actual broadcast, right? I was following the tracker. And from the moment that it would say on the clock, boom, pick is in. That's conviction. Like, oh, it's Milroe here. Oh, we're moving up for Eminawari. I mean, that's a different example, because when you move up for a player, you do it for that specific player. I just like the way they go about doing business. And I know, man, he takes a lot of heat. And maybe the way they handled the offensive line this offseason is people will kind of get off his back, because he told us the entire way, we have a plan and we're going to get that guy at left guard. And it was because the entire offseason they took their shot on Will Fries, but they knew when they missed out on him, they're like, Zabel's our guy and we're going to figure out a way to get him. And I felt that way about him before I got to know him a little bit personally. And then he's hard not to like when you talk to him individually, personally. He's just a super, super nice guy. And that's how everyone around the league feels about him. And so that's the answer I have for tonight. We'll talk about my favorite position group tomorrow when I do my 53-man. Over, under. Rick James, hardest working man in show business, right? Sex machine. Are you? No, I'm not going to ask that. Rick James, everybody, came back from the dead. What do you think the over-under line for total TDs this season by Milroe should be? I'll say 4.5. How's that sound to you? 4.5 touchdowns. I think there's a chance that he could score 5. It'd be fun. He's such a dynamic talent. I really, really hope they develop him properly. Because he does. His ceiling, his floor, this is what I love about the Milroe pick. At 92, great value, no risk. If he doesn't work out, what does it cost you? His floor is Taysom Hill. His floor is really interesting, effective gadget player. His ceiling is franchise quarterback. And I think in the middle there, the middle range, whatever you'd call that, floor, ceiling, countertop, would that be it? Did I just come up with a new term? His floor, his ceiling, his countertop is backup quarterback. Number 2. Affordable, really dynamic number 2 that you can do some cool things with. And he can come in a pinch and help you win a game if your guy gets hurt. Odds they keep Fant, I'd say it's 60-40 right now. They like him. If they didn't like him after drafting, especially, well, if they were concerned about the cap hit, he would have been gone in February. They wouldn't have waited. Seahawks don't typically like to jerk their players around. If they don't have plans for you, they want to give you the opportunity to find your next team, right? He would have been gone before free agency hit in March at the latest. Even after drafting Elijah Arroyo in the second round, that was another opportunity for them to release him if they didn't think he fit on the roster at that point. They haven't. Again, if they get to the point where the money does become an issue because they want to do other things with it, then maybe that is the case. But also, Clint Kubiak speaks highly of him. What if they really love him and they want to have a couple of great options there, and they know that Barner and Arroyo are going to be super cheap the next 3-4 years? What if they get to camp and Fant is just fits like a glove in this system? Maybe you tack another year on. Lower the cap hit again, bring him back again. You have that whole group of tight ends with some continuity. I don't think anyone's talked about that yet. If they do that, remember this. Help me out. Make me look good. Let's see if Reek Woolen is going to be one of the other big storylines, I think, of this year. Can he take that next step to be more consistent? Can he get back to ball production, right? Like everybody wants to focus on the run defense, but he needs to be, it's the ball production that we saw as a rookie that was so enticing. Let's get back to that. He's got to make plays. He's got to make an impact. Let's see. Oh my God. Bob says, Dan, you're scaring me with scarring with overlaps considering your folks. I lived in Maple Valley for my last 14 years up there. Love Maple Valley. Love it out there. Love the view of the mountain from Maple Valley. Some really cool bars there. I helped open a bar out there that's still thriving and doing really well. And worked for Union Oil also. Well, I'm about to freak out even more, Bob, because my dad's name is Bob. How do you like that? MWM, I'm still worried about depth of O-line and quarterback and linebacker. If any injuries start happening during the season at these positions from starters, it starts to get thin fast. It does. Keep in mind, there's another wave of free agency coming, right? There's just the one cut now. So you cut down to 53. It puts, let's do the math. I'm going to do some quick math for you guys. Bear with me. Calculator. So each team cuts 37 players times 32. 1,200 players become free agents on the cut. And And that's after 6 weeks of training camp and preseason. So if they feel like, and Griffin Sturgeon said on the show the other day, he had a 4th-round grade on Derek Jackson, the inside linebacker out of Kentucky that they signed after rookie minicamp after they released Jackson Woodard, who everybody thought had a good chance to make the team. He says his ceiling is NFL starter, and he sees him making the team. So maybe you're better off there than you think with him and Drake Thomas. And corner, again, they're not panicked. They don't feel like it's a dire need, or they would have signed one of these guys just to sign a body. They're not doing that. They're being really discerning and patient with this. Nose tackle is another example, right? So there's 1,200 players that are going to be released on the cut down to 53. If after training camp they have concerns, either because of an injury or performance, they can go out and get a guy then. And they have the cap space. And so they'll be in a really good position to be able to maybe swap players or make trades or, make waiver claims on players that maybe have a little bit of money on their contract because they'll have that cap space. So they're in a good spot. Stuart, how many of our 11 draft picks do you think will make the roster? Let's say 8. Specifically, I don't know, but there's guys like some of those offensive linemen, right? Like Mason Richmond. I really like his upside, but if Mike Jarrell has a really good camp and Richmond still looks like he has some development to do, then maybe they can get him to the practice squad. Teams aren't as aggressive claiming players these days because of the one cut as they used to be. It happens, but just not widely. And so, your chances of getting guys through to the practice squad are a little bit better now than they used to be. Bryce Cabeldu's another one that if all the guards, if Haynes establishes himself at right guard and LeMaya has a good camp, right? Maybe even Anthony Bradford has a good camp, then maybe Cabeldu's a guy that's got some development ahead of him that you can get to the practice squad. Mike Jarrell is a guy that can get to the practice squad probably too if they want to keep one of those guys on the roster. Whereas last year, they really wanted to lean into those young guys and give them a chance to develop. And so remember, they kept all those guys on the 53 that we were kind of surprised by. Kept all of them, LeMaya, Jarrell, and Jalen Sundell. But I think even you look at that 7th round, I think Ricky White and Damian Martinez make the roster. Little foreshadowing for my 53-man tomorrow. So I think 8. Let's see. Hank asked, do I think the Seahawks can make the playoffs? Yep. Even with the 49ers week schedule, here's the thing about the week schedule talk. There's only 3 games on the schedule that are different between the 49ers and the Seahawks. They play the Bears, Browns, Giants, and the Seahawks play the Commanders, Steelers, and that's what I get for trying to ad-lib. Everything else, that 14 of the 7 games of the 17 games are exactly the same. Also, the Seahawks have some real rest advantages. We're going to talk about that in more depth with a statistical analyst who studies that stuff in the next week or two. The way the Seahawks schedule is kind of balanced out. I like the fact they get the 49ers first and last, so they can kind of dictate their terms there. But also just the quality, and Garret Greenlee and I talked about this on the show last night, the quality overall of the NFC West. All 4 teams could make the playoffs. Like all 3 wild cards could come out of the NFC West. And they could all be pushing 10 wins because they all play the NFC South and NFC South. AFC South, NFC South. I said that right. They all have a chance to get some quote unquote easier wins that even if they kind of beat each other up and sort of split all their series within the division, they could all be pushing 10 wins. Absolutely, the Seahawks can make the playoffs. Because here's the thing about the 49ers. Yeah, they have an easy schedule. They had a tremendous amount of roster turnover. The fact that so many analysts and even Vegas are saying that they're going to win 10, 11 games again, and the Seahawks are going to finish at the bottom of the division, the 49ers are just magically going to be good again, when they just drafted an entire new defensive line. One of the positions that takes the longest to physically develop and develop skill-wise in the league. Traditionally, historically, every single year, we see these really good defensive tackles just take a long time to develop. Edge players too, because they're not physically developed until they're 25, 26 years old. And they just expect Nick Bosa and 5 new guys to just be that good. Now, We did kind of see that last year with the Rams, but it was only 2 guys, and they had drafted a couple the year before. So they integrated Braden Fisk and Jared Verse into that, plus Verse was an edge guy. So, plus they have some questions on the offensive line. No Deebo Samuel. Don't know if Ayuk's going to be back. And now you're starting to see the pendulum swing the other way, where some of the national analysts, Ian Rappaport was even saying the other day, he's like, don't just automatically assume the 49ers are going to be good again. They've had some turnover and a lot of attrition, and they've a lot of key players off that roster. Hufanga and Greenlaw, huge losses. Trey Brown's going to be one of their starting corners. Are you intimidated by that? So I wouldn't worry too much about that yet. Mike says, you and I are brothers from another mother about wings, Dan. Yeah. I like trying all the flavors. Love me some good garlic butter, right? Thai chili, teriyaki. Like, they're all fun. Barbecue, obviously. Spicy barbecue, of course. I'm a spice guy. I put sriracha on everything. Tons of it. I have like no tolerance for it now, or a very high tolerance for it. Like, I made myself, my lady and I stayed up all night last night because she works nights and she had to go back to work tonight. And so we were trying to get her sleep schedule back on. So we stayed up binging shows all night. She's finally watching Ted Lasso. Makes me very, very, very proud and happy. So I got up and made myself a big scramble at like 5:30 in the morning, diced potatoes, and onions, and peppers, cheese, and eggs, obviously, bacon. And I just slathered it in sriracha. It was freaking delicious. Yeah, garlic and Parmesan. Guys are making me hungry, damn it. Supposed to be eating better today. Had a big smoothie before I started. I think it's wearing off. Hank asked if I've ever been to Leavenworth multiple times. And I'm one of those guys that I like Leavenworth as much in the summertime as I do at Christmas time. Like, man, summertime, the river, the bars there, some really good beer, some cool shops to explore. Although the last time I went there, when the weather was nice, there were a bunch of forest fires, and that kind of made it rough. But I have done the Christmas experience too. And an old girlfriend and I, many years ago, their family used to do that every year. They had a standing reservation at I think it was the Icicle Inn, the main one right there in the middle of town, and went for like 3 days and it was perfect. It was snow everywhere. We're sledding all over the place. Just gorgeous. I think it's one of the coolest little spots in the country. Their commitment to that concept is, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been copied as much anywhere else. It's pretty cool. John asked, what are my favorite things about Arizona and West Virginia? Arizona, the sun. Born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. I've always vehemently defended it when people say, oh, it's just gray and dreary all the time and it rains. I'll fight him back on that. Doesn't usually rain hard. Sprinkles. We don't have that many extreme winters, although that's changed a little bit in the last 8 or 9 years. And the summers, from most years, from June or at least early July, the old joke used to be summer starts July 5th in Seattle, all the way through October sometimes with Indian summer. Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. But the older I get, the more I started to become aware of how the winters would wear on me. And when that really kicked in is in 2016. I was really burned out after like a 13-year run as a general manager running busy restaurants and bars. And the last job especially beat the crap out of me. And I needed to get away. And I went to Arizona with the thought at the time I might stay there long term. Really, really good best friend of mine has lived there for a long time. He had some businesses. I went and helped him out. And I was only ended up being there for 3 months, ended up coming back home for a couple of different reasons. But just, it was transformative for me. I would wake up I'm not a morning person. I'd wake up at 7 o'clock every morning automatically without an alarm clock, just because of the sun's different down there, man. And it would just energize me. And so I'd be in the gym at 7:30. And so, to go down there from February, March, and April when, there were some 60-degree days and the nights were cold. But at that apartment, we had a patio and we spent so much time just sitting outside, listening to the birds, watching the birds, letting the cats run around, having a beer. It's just the sunshine. It's just knowing that every day you wake up and you get to hop in the car, go do whatever you need to do. And 99 days out of 100, you don't have to worry about inclement weather. Here in West Virginia so far, it's the lush greenery. It's so freaking beautiful. I had no idea. I mean, you know, people talk about the falls in the Northeast, and I did get to see a Connecticut fall one time. I didn't know it extended this far down. Just lush, leafy greenery everywhere, rivers everywhere, more bridges than I've ever seen in my life. And like I've said, in the last 2 weeks, we've hiked more and explored more in 2.5 weeks than we have in the aggregate in years. It's so that's what I would say about it. Just absolutely freaking gorgeous. Great questions, you guys. This is kind of fun. There's 150 of you in here. You know, sometimes 700, 800, 900 are in a live stream. So this is a little bit more intimate, but it's kind of cool. Just do this more often, right? Also, I want to check on something because maybe one of the reasons that there are some people not in here is because Mariners playing the Astros right now. It's 3-2 Astros in the bottom of the fourth. George Kirby's return, so-so. 3 2/3, 3 earned runs, 4 strikeouts and a walk. Probably take him a little bit. And he's got some trouble right now too. 2 outs in the bottom of the fourth, runners on first and third, which leads me to an announcement. And then I'll kind of scroll through, see if there's anything really cool that I've missed. And then I'll unveil my movie list. If you haven't heard, tomorrow I am debuting a new channel. Been thinking about this for a while, was hesitant, didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. And then also they got off to that really rough start. And I thought, is this the best time to start a show? But I haven't been able to talk about the Mariners in 3 years since I last did my own podcast where I talked about multiple sports. Mariners Forever debuts tomorrow. At Mariners Forever Show on YouTube, if you want to go subscribe now so that you're ready. The show should be posted early afternoon Pacific time tomorrow. It's going to, at first, be a weekly show. We're shooting for Fridays so that you have the weekend to sit with it, so that we can preview big weekend series and things of that nature. But sometimes it'll be on Thursdays, so look for that. Initially, it'll be pre-produced videos, but we'll start doing some lives once we get comfortable. And I think you have to have a certain number of subscribers to be able to go live anyway. If I recall, it's been a while. But I'm also excited because I get to hang out with my buddy Michael Thompson, formerly of Soto Mojo. Now he does football stuff too. You've seen him on the show. He studies the draft really hard. He's a very versatile talent, but he loves baseball and he gets into it heavy, like draft prospects, minor league stuff. He knows his stuff. And so really excited that we get to do this on the regular and we get to focus on the Mariners. That will start tomorrow. We'll recap the season so far. We'll talk about Kirby's first start, talk about some potential call-ups. There might be an issue with Julio Rodriguez. He was a late scratch tonight. No word yet, at least for me, on what that might mean for him. The Mariners continue to have to battle injuries now, but they get Kirby back. Logan Gilbert could be back soon. So lots to talk about. The team's in first place, has been now for a while. I think the lead today was 2.5 games this morning. So check that out. Also, we do have a Twitter. It's at Mariners_4ever, because somebody took Mariners Forever years ago, didn't use it, has like 7 followers, no avatar, pisses me off, whatever. So yeah, that starts tomorrow. Weekly shows, and then obviously when there's breaking news, trades, acquisitions, big injuries, the draft obviously coming up. The Mariners have the 3rd pick overall, and I think 3 of the top 50. I think they have the biggest draft bonus pool this year. And they've been able to manipulate that masterfully over the last few years. So really excited about that. Check that out. If you're a baseball fan, get over there and subscribe to help us get going. And just so you don't miss it, first show will be tomorrow. Hank asks, what's my posting schedule? Don't have one. When I started going daily and doing this full time, I thought, I should do it at the same time every day. But there's real life and sometimes, and when I was in Arizona, just our apartment wasn't big enough. I had to allow for my lady to sleep after working nights. And so I would go prep shows. I'd sit at Starbucks, drink coffee and do all my research and watch draft video and put graphics together and stuff like that. And I'd, when she went to work, then I would go live. I have a lot more flexibility here. It all just kind of depends on when guests are available and just around my schedule. And so for the most part, you're going to get 5 shows a week, sometimes 6. They're going to tend to be Monday through Friday. But sometimes, and some of this depends on her schedule. Like, I really like to have balance in my life, right? And because she'll work like 3-4 days in a row, then she'll have 3-4 off. Like, we might want to go somewhere for a couple of days. And so I'll stack shows early, or maybe I'll do a show on a Sunday night if we're going to go do some things on Monday and Tuesday. So, there's real life involved here too. But for the most part, Monday through Friday. Once we get into the season, of course, that changes because you're going to do, reactions after games, things of that nature. So the best way to know when new content's coming is twofold. Follow me on Twitter because I always post it there, and hit that bell right down below so you get notifications. I know notifications can be kind of crazy and overwhelming, and you hate getting too many of them, but you're only going to get notified when something is posted. So that is my answer for that. Let's see. Let's get through here because I want to get to my... This is why it's been so much fun. It's been an hour and 40 already. Roy says, love Wyman. John says, yep, Wyman's old school. Love him, respect him. Any of you know Wyman? Put a good word in for me. So I've had Paul Moyer on the show. He'll be back again sometime this offseason. Always love having Paul on. He's really respectful. He's very complimentary of the show. He's a big supporter of mine. He's featured in my little promo video at the top of the channel. And I asked him to put a good word in for me with Bob, and he actually CC'd him and on an email, and I've reached out to Bob a couple of times. Not Bob, Dave Wyman. He was one of my favorite Seahawks players, and I love his perspective. I love his style. Would love to get him on the show. He's kind of on that list of like white whales of like guys I just absolutely want to have on the show no matter what. Which, by the way, if you guys have like some dream guests you'd like me to try to pursue, I probably already have, but hit me in the comments on those. I'm always trying. Some people just don't have their DMs on, or don't offer up an email or contact information at any way. I have had some big names respond to me favorably and then just never follow up or cancel and then stop answering, whatever. Some people don't like doing these, or they just have a lot going on and they get asked to do so many of these, and I'm kind of a small creator, right? So, but I've also had some people that have been very, very cool and gracious, and we'll continue to have them back on the show. But Dave's a guy that I would absolutely love to have on here. I'm just catching up to the radio conversation, so let's go down to the bottom here. John asks, what are the keys to beating the Cards, 49ers, and Rams this year? Really want that division title back. I think it's twofold. Got to be able to run the football. Run the damn football. If they can get to where they're getting 120 to 150 yards a game, they're converting on third down, they're better in the red zone. They can run the ball at the end of the game, even when the other team knows that they're going to run the football because they're trying to milk the clock. That's something they haven't been able to do since Marshawn, really. And there was a little bit of that with, healthy Chris Carson. I think that's a big one. And then on defense, Griffin would tell you, like he did on the show the other day, it's play action pass, play action defense. I think it's pass rush. Get to the quarterback. Run the football, get to the quarterback. I mean, I'm not reinventing the wheel there, but I think those are the keys to both those teams, especially the Rams, like moving Stafford off his spot, right? Trying to get to him, but man, that offensive line is going to be good. So that's, run the football, rush the passer. How do we improve on third down? I think Clint Kubiak has a plan. The Saints were pretty darn good on third down last year, even though they were ravaged by injuries on the offensive line. Carr was out for a while. Kamara was banged up for a while. Shahi went out for the year. Olave, I think, is always kind of dinged up. Like, they're pretty good on third down. Now, some of that, he gives credit to Taysom Hill. So I'll put this one on the offensive line, right? Like, that, they just have to be more consistent. And that goes right back to my last answer. You got to be able to run the football. You got to be able to convert some of these third downs running the football. And that's just something they could not do last year, and really it wasn't that good the year before either. Hey, MWM is checking in with his 5 movies, and then we're going to get into this. All right, here's what he says. Any Given Sunday, Rudy, We Are Marshall, Remember the Titans, and When the Game Stands Tall. Okay. I'll give you a little hint. Of those 5, and they all have their strong points, and they're all movies. I got some honorable mention I'll throw out too, and maybe some of them are on there. One of his 5 is on my 5. All right, let's get to that. It's going to be fun. Oh, wait a second. Let me just do a couple things first. Ian says, hey, you're not that far from me. I'm in Kentucky. We're at least 3 hours away from one another. One of the things, and I guess I could tag this back onto the answer from earlier when I was asked my favorite things about Arizona and West Virginia, and I answered lush greenery with West Virginia. It's also the fact, as someone who lived in the Pacific Northwest their whole life, where you're on a satellite, everything is far away. Everything's close here. Like, I can just go to maps, and we were doing this the other day. We were like, unfortunately, the Mariners' schedule doesn't match up between now and the end of July for me to go see them in one of these cities. But everything is 3 to 4 hours away. We can go to Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Lexington, Louisville, Columbus, Ohio in 3 to 4 hours. Everything. It's so cool. So, looking for opportunities there. Concerts, like if your favorite band is skipping your town, but you can drive 2.5 hours to go see them, or 4 or 5, New York's 6-hour drive, like that's crazy to me. And it's something that I really, really like about this. Hey, look who's here. Bryce Coots. Program replacements. Also, like if I had made this list, I made this list 5 instead of 10 or longer just to make it harder. All right, here we go. Ready? And we're going to go 5 to 1. During draft season, I did a top 5 something, and I showed it all at the same time. And somebody was like, come on, man, give us some suspense. So I'm with you. All right, hold on. And again, my parameters, I'm not trying to pick the movies that I think are the best movies. The movies I like the most, which I guess should be the parameter for anyone, right? All right. I told you there would be one on the list that none of you will get. None of you. All the right moves. Tom Cruise. Hold on. Let me pull up my notes here. This is just one of my guilty pleasure all time. This movie stuck with me. You watch movies sometimes and just stylistically, the way they're shot, the way they make you feel something, whatever, it sticks with you for years. This movie was so well done. They didn't make it, first of all, it was early in Tom Cruise's career. It was his 6th movie ever. He's very, very young in this movie. It's set in Western Pennsylvania. He's a high school football player. He plays a defensive back. It's a small town, industrial town. No one ever leaves. And you're kind of frowned upon if you want to leave. Like, oh, you want to go to college? You want to go somewhere? You want to go to the big city? And he wanted to. He wanted to go to a big school. He was like a B student, though, but he was a star football player. So he wasn't going to be able to be accepted everywhere. And he was such an intense person. He worked so hard at it that kind of was his undoing a little bit. It's a drama. And because he wanted to do that, there's a lot of resentment in the town, right? People thought he was better than everybody else. He also was very tightly wound, and so he put so much pressure on himself that kind of became his worst enemy too. And then there's a big game where he commits a mistake, and the coach basically turns on him, blackballs him, kicks him off the team, actively goes out of his way to try and kill his scholarship chances and really ruin this kid's career. It's such a great early role for Cruise. It's not flashy. The movie is very dark, and by dark, I don't mean like disturbing. I mean just the feel and the way it's shot. They really encapsulate and capture that small town, gritty, industrial kind of rundown, factory driven area. It's wonderful. If you've never watched it, find it, watch it. Leah Thompson plays his girlfriend, and now I can't remember who played the coach, but he's such a good asshole. It's this one's not going to be on anyone's list. man, but it's so good. I highly recommend it. Yeah, MWM says Leah Thompson. There you go. See, he knows. If you know, you know, right? John says, get ready for the backlash. Oh, 100%. But that's kind of the fun of some of these, right? All right, number 4. This isn't going to surprise anybody. How many of you were there the night before the draft on the live stream with draft day? There are things about this movie that are ridiculous. We talked about it that night in the live stream. Like, there are some things that are so unrealistic, like the draft room, the war room conversations. Like, they had never done a scouting report before on Bo Callahan. They didn't think there was any chance he would drop to 7, so they barely even looked at him. So they had to start from scratch that day. Some of the casting decisions, Dennis Leary, I thought was terrible as the head coach. Some of it's really, really cheesy and cornball, but subject matters. Subject matter counts. And the fact that the NFL signed off on this, right, and allowed them to shoot at the draft and everything else, the fact that a Hollywood studio signed off on a movie about the NFL draft that, like, wide audiences weren't going to watch. This is like the Moneyball in some ways of football movies, except Moneyball was much, much more realistic and higher quality. It's a guilty pleasure. Kevin Costner's casting makes the whole thing happen. Like, I'll watch him in a sports movie, 7 days a week. I just absolutely love it. It's a go-to. It's a necessity to watch every single year before the draft. It's just, the draft is one of my favorite things in the world, and they made a freaking movie about it. So it's not perfect, but I love it. Craig T. Nelson was the coach in All the Right Moves. Oh my God, no wonder. I said he was a good asshole, all right? I mean, he went on to have a whole series where he was a coach, right? I'm going to have to go back and watch that. Maybe tonight. All right, number 3. You guys called it Any Given Sunday. It's Oliver freaking Stone made a football movie. And Al freaking Pacino played the head coach in an Oliver freaking Stone football movie. This one, it has been referred to as a gladiator film, as almost a war film. Oliver Stone obviously knows a thing or two about that. I thought Al Pacino, there were some moments and some scenes where he didn't really seem realistic. But man, that locker room speech at the end, like, it was classic Pacino. I thought Jamie Foxx was really believable as the quarterback. The fact he played quarterback in high school and could actually throw the football helped him get the role. My biggest pet peeve in football movies is when the players don't look like they can actually play. This movie doesn't sugarcoat anything. It shows some of the dark side of the business of football, some of the, like, drug addiction, right? The head trainer was given painkillers and stuff. Some of the seedy underbelly of sports and how it's not just all about entertainment and winning and losing on Sundays. Just really, really well done. It's been way too long since I've seen it. How can you go wrong with Oliver Stone doing a football movie, right? However, this next movie has been called the unofficial precursor to Any Given Sunday, but it was done 20 years earlier. North Dallas 40. Now, some of you younger folks, God, can you sound any older than when you use the term younger folks? Sorry. It was kind of, Any Given Sunday before Any Given Sunday. Really focused on the business side of the game. Mac Davis played the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Nick Nolte played the receiver. They were both at the end of their careers. Broken down. There's this great scene where Nick Nolte gets out of bed and he's like the Elephant Man. It's like he has to crack his whole back. It's so realistic, especially for back then when things were done. It was before the league really became the entertainment behemoth it is today. There were players literally back then that, like, if you're at the bottom of the roster, you might have to get an off-season job. Like, the money wasn't what it is today. Once you were too old and used up, like, you were replaceable. This one really did also focus on sort of the darker aspects of the game and of the sport. And for that reason, I think it made it really realistic. I think Any Given Sunday and North Dallas 40, Any Given Sunday can be almost considered a sequel in some ways. They both didn't pull any punches and didn't try to sugarcoat or glamorize NFL life. In fact, Any Given Sunday, I think it really kind of rubbed the NFL. The league was pissed about how that movie turned out because it didn't really show professional football in the league and how they treat players in the most positive light. So absolutely love it. And then my number one, I think a lot of you would probably agree with this. And then I'll give you my honorable mentions is Friday Night Lights. It's Peter Berg, like the tone that he sets based on true story, obviously. And I thought they captured Texas football so well. There's a scene in that movie. It might be near the beginning of the movie where it's an aerial shot where they kind of swoop in. It's at night. And it's one of those small Texas towns. It's not like Dallas, Fort Worth. And off in the distance, you see the lights, like an oasis in the desert. And then they get closer and closer. And you see that it's a small football stadium, but it holds like 20,000 people. I thought they dealt with the dark side of it really well as well. Like the whole Boobie Miles injury and everything. How much these young players, how much pressure they had placed on them as 16, 17-year-old players to where, their dads are fighting with them. The town's casting them out. They're having depression and anxiety issues. And just, there's so much at stake. If I don't get a scholarship, I'm going to work on the oil rigs, right? And the fact that it spawned the greatest football TV series of all time, the TV version of it with Coach Taylor and everything, which also is Peter Berg, the music, like the tone, the Billy Bob Thornton depiction of the head coach, I thought was absolutely out of this world. I thought it was really, really fantastic. I'm going to put this up on the screen as well. So let me take this away. Give me 1 second here, you guys. Let's go, because I want to show you. I don't want you to think that I'm cheating. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. I don't want you to think I'm cheating, so I'm going to put this up because you'll see right here. See that? Let me go bold and make it bigger. These are my honorable mention, right? Just missing the cut. And I see over in the comments, I'm taking some shit already on some stuff, right? First of all, as you can see from my list, and let's put this up again, except for Draft Day, I prefer serious football movies. As far as this list, there's 20 football movies that I love and would watch over and over and over again. And we'll get to that. But you can see that I prefer movies that depict the sport realistically, where the action scenes look realistic, like they look like players that could actually play football, where they don't just sugarcoat everything and make it all just corny, and except for Draft Day, right? Had to have one guilty pleasure on there. And so that's just my preference. It's not that I have anything negative to say about these other movies, okay? Let's take this out of here and go back to this. So you can see, Remember the Titans, awesome. Another movie where they really painted the picture. Like, I remember a lot of rainy football scenes, Denzel depicting that coach. It was a great performance by him, as if I'd expect anything less, based on a true story. Obviously, a very pivotal time in history in this country as it relates to just the social standing and the racial divide, but also the game of football and how it played a role and how you can learn life lessons playing the game of football. And then and then we go with the comedies. Okay, there's Waterboy, freaking love it. High quality H2O is probably a line that I use weekly. Right? It was such a ridiculous portrayal of that player, but I think that's why it was so great, because he committed so much to playing it that way. And then the action scenes were hilarious and fun when he'd get all pissed off and just be like a bat out of hell. So yeah, Waterboy's 100% on there. The Longest Yard, but the original one, not the Adam Sandler one. That's garbage. But the one with Burt Reynolds, which wasn't just a comedy. There was some pretty dark stuff in that movie too, right? Guy getting murdered. It was really hard to not put these four somewhere on the list, to the point that I thought about maybe I go 10. And then Jerry Maguire, which I almost didn't even list it as an honorable mention because I thought, well, it uses football sort of as the canvas for a love story. But it really leaned into the football stuff. The NFL was involved. There were a ton of cameos, broadcasters, players. Drew Bledsoe made an appearance in that game. Some of the agents and stuff. And I thought Maguire playing, wasn't it based on, oh my gosh, who's the old famous God, he used to represent all the big quarterbacks, the old agent. It was basically based on his life. But it was just so well done. And then the Cuba Gooding Jr. character, I thought that was great. The way they showed how it impacts your family and your love life and things like that. You know, the scenes where, you know, Show Me the Money is iconic. It's classic. I'm a huge Cruise fan, so, you know, I'm a sucker for that. And then I put We Are Marshall on here, which is kind of interesting because I'm in West Virginia. There's a Marshall University satellite campus in Charleston right here. But I almost don't consider We Are Marshall a football movie. I consider it a disaster film, a drama, that where football is just kind of the conduit to tell the story. It's obviously, there's football's involved, but so I almost would have an asterisk next to that. But yeah, you guys are hitting on a bunch of other ones. Like I wrote down some other ones. Let me see here. I mean, The Program, Varsity Blues, absolutely watchable. I'm not a big Rudy fan, especially after learning that it's basically all bullshit and is mostly fictional and made up and didn't really happen that way. Let's see, what else? Am I missing anything? I mean, again, this is going to age me, but Brian's song, anyone remember that? We're talking 1971, the story about Brian Piccolo and Gail Sayers and their friendship and Piccolo's fight with leukemia or cancer, I think. That was a made-for-TV movie, and yet it dealt with, I thought, really, really well with football. Invincible with Mark Wahlberg, I thought was enjoyable. Watched it more than once. Like I said, Varsity Blues, The Program. I mean, when I was young, Heaven Can Wait was kind of fun, right? With Warren Beatty as the guy who comes back from the dead. He gets another shot to go back on Earth, and he gets to, because he had some unfinished business. I think it might have been relationship related. So God puts him in the body of the starting quarterback of the LA Rams. Like, I think he drops him into his body during a game. He's like under center and he has to figure it out. Interesting. If you've never heard of that, go back and watch it. I thought Concussion was really well done, but again, it's a football movie, obviously, but it's a very, very serious subject. So I think if you look at all the sports overall, there are more. The list of good football movies is longer than the list of good baseball movies. I would argue that. But we'll have to do that list over on Mariners Forever for sure. Yeah, Brian's song was sad, tearjerker, sad. Hank says my list is pretty good. John McGrath says favorite Burt Reynolds movie. That movie was well done. I'm definitely going to watch one of these movies when we're done here tonight. I'm not sure which one now. I think it's going to be All the Right Moves, because it's been so long. You guys have to watch that movie. Here's John's. Jerry Maguire, North Dallas 40, Waterboy, Longest Yard, Replacements. That's great. I need to go back and watch Replacements again. I remember that was, I know it was Keanu Reeves and rest in peace. Wasn't the head coach, Gene Hackman? Yeah. Yeah. Really, really good. Could have easily been on my honorable mention. That was fun. Bryce likes the list. John says, no Waterboy, no Replacement. You're killing me. Again, I prefer serious football movies. Yeah, Mike brings up that scene from Nick Nolte trying to get out of bed. That's iconic, man. It's crazy. But also it's like they do a good job of like he's smoking in the locker room, you know, that kind of thing. It's kind of cool. They show him like trying to negotiate his own contract with the owners, and the owner is just a prick. Like, you'll know the actor when you see him. I would never know his name. He was a character actor, but he played roles like this. He was one of those guys that just played dicks. Yeah. So good. Yeah. All right, you guys, that was fun. 2 hours in, a lot of great questions, a lot of great involvement. I really love it. Again, a couple of reminders. Tomorrow, I'm gonna do my 53-man roster projection. It'll be really interesting. I don't even know yet how I'm going to deal with some of those positional crunches that we talked about, running back, tight end, and wide receiver, and where you're going to maybe borrow from some other spots to build those up. How many of the draft picks will make the team? How many of the draft picks that we thought were going to be significant players the last 2 drafts aren't going to make the team? So that'll be tomorrow. Let's see. I'll do that as a live show because I really want to get input and reactions and your ideas too. So let's do same time tomorrow, 5 o'clock Pacific time. I'll unveil it then. We'll go through it kind of position group by position group and get your thoughts on that. So live tomorrow for that, back here on this channel on Seahawks Forever at 5 o'clock Pacific time. And then again, tomorrow, earlier than that, the launch of Mariners Forever. It's at Mariners Forever Show on YouTube. Go over and subscribe to that. Look for that. Michael and I are recording early in the morning. So I'll have it up sometime early in the afternoon, especially Pacific time. So you get a lot of time to sit with it over the weekend. That'll be weekly, unless other big breaking news or big storylines dictate more. With Michael Thompson, formerly of Soto Mojo, who you've seen talk football on here, but he might even be better with baseball. And there's a lot to look forward to with the Seahawks or with the Mariners being in first place, potentially being huge active participants at the trade deadline. A lot could happen there. Guys coming back from injuries. Some top prospects are really, really red hot in the minors. Who's going to be called up? Who's going to be DFA'd that aren't getting it done on the major league roster? And then, of course, the draft coming up in July where the Mariners hold the 3rd overall pick and have the most draft capital and the most draft pool money of any team in baseball. So that'll be fun to cover as well. It's a good time to jump into it. I'm excited to talk about baseball again, you guys. That'll be a lot of fun. Some of you might remember the Emerald City Sportscast or even the Dan Cave where I would talk about a bunch of stuff before I got the Field Goals gig and then turned it into Seahawks Forever. So that'll happen tomorrow as well. Thanks so much, you guys. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky as always at Seahawks Forever. And if you want to help support me, donate, and just support the show, subscribe, like, and then hit the links down below in the description. Also, the last 2 shows, if you haven't had a chance to catch up with those yet, my conversation with Griffin Sturgeon about the state of the Seahawks defense, always great to pick his brain. And then a new superstar on the scene in YouTube, almost 200,000 subscribers on the Football Analyst channel. Garret Greenlee joined me yesterday, and he was phenomenal. If you haven't watched that interview yet, it's a must watch. He will be back on the show for sure. I'm Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. Thanks for being a part of it. I really appreciate everything you guys do. Forever and always, go Hawks.